that's something that requires the Supreme Court to say now. Let's see what the current up-to-date consequences of government regulation of broadcast are, because indecency is what is the issue of the day on broadcast. And this all started with George Carlin's dirty words monologue that led to the Pacifica case. And Carlin, as you know, was a comedian and satirist who gave a live performance that was recorded someplace. And a Pacifica radio station back east put it on the air on a Tuesday afternoon. And a man and his boy he was driving his boy home from school, and they were listening to the radio, and they came across George Carlin's dirty words monologue. And here's what they heard. Those of you who don't like to hear dirty words may cover your ears or leave the room. But I believe in free speech, and you're going to have to listen to it. Come in, George.
Back to you people. Listen. And I was thinking about curse words and swear words. Cuss words and words you can't say, you're not supposed to say all the time. Because words, people are into words, they want to hear your words. Some guys like to record your words and sell them back to you people. Listen on the telephone, write down what words you say. A guy used to be in Washington, knew that his phone was tapped, used to answer. Talk Hoover? Yes, go ahead. Okay. And I was thinking one night about the words you couldn't say on the public airwaves. Words you definitely couldn't say, ever. Because I heard a lady say bitch one night on television. It was cool, like she was talking about, the bitch is the first one you ought to say, and the later time, right? And bastard you can say, and hell and damn. So I had to figure out which ones you couldn't, and ever. And it came down to 7, but the list is open to amendment, and in fact has been changed by now. A lot of people pointing things out to me, and I noticed some myself. The original 7 words were shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, and tits. Those are the ones that will curve your spine, grow hair on your hands, and maybe even bring us, God help us, peace without honor. For a burden. And now the first thing that we noticed was that the word fuck was really repeated in there because the word motherfucker is a compound word. It's another form of the word fuck. If you want to be a purist, it can't be on the list of basic words. Also, cocksucker is a compound word, and neither half of that is really dirty. The word half sucker, that's really suggestive. And the word cock is a halfway dirty word, 50% dirty half the time, depending on what you mean by it. Remember when you first started, like in 6th grade, you used to get on the cock road 3 times. Hey, the cock 3 times, it's in the Bible, cock is in the Bible. The first time you heard about a cockfight, remember? What? No, it's chickens, you know? Then you have the 4-letter words from the old Anglo-Saxon fame, shit and fuck. The word shit is an interesting kind of word in that the middle class has never really accepted it and approved it. They use it like crazy, but it's not really okay. It's still a rude, dirty, old kind of gushy word. They don't like that. But they say, like a lady now in a middle class home, you'll hear most of the time she says it as an expletive. You know, it's out of her mouth before she knows. She says, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. If she drops something, oh shit, like the broccoli, shit. Thank you.
Somebody just handed him. He just won a Grammy. Somebody just handed him.
Shit. I won the Grammy, man, for the comedy album. Isn't that great? Thank you. Thank you, man. That's sweet. That's sweet. Thank you. Thank you, man. Hey! Thank you, Thank you, man. Thank you. Thank you very much, man. Thank you for that and for the Grammy, man, because that's based on people liking it, man. Yeah, that's okay, man. I said that go, man. Get my Grammy, I went my head, man. So, now the word shit is okay for the man. At work you can say it like crazy, mostly figuratively. Get that shit out of here, will you? I don't want to see that shit anymore. I can't cut that shit, buddy. I've had that shit up to here. And I think you're full of shit myself, man. You don't know shit from Shinola, you know that? Always wondered how the Shinola people felt about that. Hi, I'm the new man from Shinola. Hi, how are you? Nice to see you. Hi.
You get the idea. I mean, it goes on, fuck is next, and similar literate analysis of the origin and various usages of the word fuck and its derivatives and so on. Well, the FCC sanctioned the Pacifica station for having put that on the air at a time when children might be in the listening audience. And the case, Pacifica took the case to the Supreme Court, arguing that the government could not regulate indecency on the airwaves that wasn't obscene. Obscenity, of course, is not protected by the First Amendment, but indecency is, or one thought it would be, and that the government shouldn't be allowed to sanction a broadcaster for airing something that is merely indecent as opposed to obscene. And the Supreme Court upheld the FCC's action against Pacifica, finding that the government could constitutionally regulate indecency on the airwaves. The opinion was written by Justice John Paul Stevens when he was fairly new on the court, and I'm guessing that he's, if not ashamed of that opinion, at least would write it very differently if he were still in the court today. Of course, he retired a couple of years ago. But he has said things in First Amendment cases since then that indicate that he would like to distance himself from the Pacifica result. But what Pacifica, the opinion, did was, for starters, rely on Red Lion for the proposition that broadcast is the least protected medium of communication under the First Amendment, that the government has a legitimate role in regulating broadcast, that broadcast as a medium is intrusive in the sense that it invades your space. Here's this man and his boy in a car, and the broadcast intrudes into their space and intrudes into your living room. It's an intrusive kind of medium, as compared, I suppose, with a newspaper that you have to do a little work at and actually turn the pages and so on. Here's these dirty words dumped in your lap intrusively. It is pervasive medium in the sense that you can get it practically anywhere. It is uniquely accessible to children. Not difficult for a kid to turn on the radio or the television set and be subjected to indecent material. And the FCC's policy against indecency is based on the government interest in shielding children, minors, from exposure to indecent material. Maybe we grown-ups have a right to exchange indecent language and images under the First Amendment without government interference. But in the interest of protecting children, the FCC says we're entitled to limit their exposure to indecent material by licensed broadcasters. And the Pacifica decision introduced this category of indecent speech that hadn't previously been recognized in the court's decisions. Indecent speech, under the FCC's definition, is language or material that depicts or describes, in terms patently offensive as measured by contemporary community standards for the broadcast medium, sexual or excretory activities or organs. Notice that that definition of indecency picks up one part of the definition, the recognized Miller versus California definition of obscenity. Remember, that's prurient, appeal to the prurient interest, patently offensive sexual or excretory acts, and no serious literary, scientific, artistic value. Well, the definition of indecency singles out just the patently offensive part, so that material that doesn't appeal to the prurient interest, like Carlin's monologue. I mean, nobody gets turned on by listening to that. Somebody says shit, nobody gets turned on. That doesn't appeal to the prurient interest. And material that may well have serious literary, artistic value and so on, political value, maybe Carlin's monologue has that, can be considered indecent. The focus under the indecency definition is simply on its patently offensive description or depiction of sex or excretory acts. And Justice Stevens in the Pacifica decision said that this kind of speech lies at the periphery of First Amendment concerns. You know, it's, in a sense, low-value speech compared to political speech, which is an unfortunate way of doing it. And the court also emphasized that this isn't a criminal law. We're not sending anybody to prison here. It's just an administrative sanction, and in the case of the Carlin monologue, it was really just a slap on the wrist. It was a reprimand. It was in the file. Didn't have any fine, nothing associated with it. But the Pacifica decision was the foundation for the more recent, or at least during the George W. Bush administration, the push to really penalize broadcasters who aired indecent material. An interesting factoid about the Pacifica decision that you should tuck away, and we'll look at it again when we reach the internet case, the Reno versus ACLU next Tuesday. That is that Justice Stevens appended to the court's opinion in the Pacifica decision a transcript of the Carlin monologue to give readers a sense of what the case was all about. And so if you look up the Pacifica decision in the official United States reports, those serious-looking books on a bookshelf in any law library or online, you look it up, there's going to be Carlin's monologue for all to see. Nothing was made of that in the decision itself. Well, Pacifica then had offspring. And in the Bush administration, the FCC got busy when Bono, for example, got some Billboard award, I think it was. He says, this is really fucking brilliant, when he got the thing. And the FCC said, that's indecent, even though it wasn't repeated, even though it seemed to be spontaneous, even though it wasn't deliberate by the broadcaster, his saying that is indecent. They didn't fine the broadcaster, I forget what it was, ABC or who it was, because they hadn't announced yet that they had a new policy against fleeting expletives, one-shot fucks or shits that appeared on the air. Then Cher came on to accept a group, I forget what it was, the award that she got, and she's referring to the people who had told her she was washed up all these years over the hill, and she said, right, so fuck them. And the FCC fined the broadcaster on that. And the next year at the same award ceremony, Nicole Richie, who you may know of or recognize, I don't know who she is, she accepts the award and says something about, it's not so fucking easy to get shit out of a Prada purse. And the FCC came down on that broadcaster. So during the Bush administration, the 8 years of the Bush administration, the FCC got real active in policing indecency on the airwaves. And the fines were multiplied many times. The Congress adopted a new regime of fines so that you could be fined up to $325,000. It was a tenfold increase in the amount of fine for airing indecency. And the FCC's way of administering this was, of course, complaint activated, but a number of organizations are watching for this, and they generate, at the click of a computer key, they generate thousands of complaints to the FCC every time something is aired that they don't like. But the FCC's system is one of what they call time channeling, which is that you can't air indecent material between the hours of 6 in the morning and 10 at night, 6 a.m. and 10 p.m., because that's a time when children may be in the viewing or the listening audience. And the new policy that the FCC implemented a few years ago is one that eliminates what they view as an exception for fleeting expletives. Previously, a fleeting expletive would not result in punishment because it was fleeting and it was only one-time thing. It wasn't deliberate and it wasn't repeated. Well, they took that exception away and said that even fleeting expletives can now be subject to punishment. Still enforcing the the indecency regulation, as I mentioned it before. Well, these cases with Cher and Nicole Richie and Bono, to some extent, percolated their way up to the Supreme Court in the Fox Broadcasting case, which was heard twice by the Supreme Court, and we'll have to start on that on Thursday. So we'll finish up that. We'll probably get to the internet cases on Thursday, too.